Adullam. Adullam Hebrew Adullam is an ancient ruin, formerly known by the Arabic appellation Eîd el Mieh or Eîd el Mieh, built upon a hilltop overlooking the Elah Valley, straddling the Green Line between Israel and the West Bank. In the late 19th century, the town was still in ruins. The hilltop ruin is also known by the name Khurbet, esh-Sheikh Madkour, named after Madkour, one of the sons of the Sultan Beder, for whom is built a shrine Wely and formerly called by its inhabitants Wely Madkour. The hilltop is mostly flat, with cisterns carved into the rock. The remains of stone structures which once stood there can still be seen. Sedimentary layers of ruins from the old Canaanite and Israelite eras, mostly potsherds, are noticeable everywhere, although olive groves now grow atop of this hill, enclosed within stone hedges. The villages of Aderet, Aviezer and Khirbet al-Deir are located nearby. The ruin lies about 3 kilometers south of Moshav Neve Michael. The area around ancient Adullam between Bet Shemesh and Bet Guvrin was established in 1957 as Adullam Region Hebrew, KHVL and settled since then. Main archaeological sites: esh-Sheikh Madkour Grid, 1503/1175, sitting at an elevation of 434 meters, 1424 ft above sea level, is thought by modern historical geographers Eîd el Mieh, a site whose name is believed to be a corruption of Adullam. The identification of the upper site with the biblical Adullam is still inconclusive, as archaeological evidence attesting to its Old Canaanite name has yet to be found. While Victor Guerin does not specifically say that the site in question was the ancient Adullam, he holds that esh-Sheikh Madkour and Eîd el Mieh are to be recognized as the same city, the upper and the lower. Site maintained by the JNFKKL in Israel and where archaeological surveys and partial excavations have been conducted. The site features ancient caverns, cisterns carved into the rock, and a Muslim shrine known as Wely Madkour. Eîd el Mieh, also known as Eîd el Mieh Grid, 1504/1181, is the site recognized by M. Clermont Ganneau as Adullam proper, being now a tell at the southern end of Wadi Sur, an extension of the Elah Valley. The ruin sits at an elevation of 351 meters 1152 ft above sea level. The ruin is overgrown with vegetation and trees at the bottom of the mountain whereon lies esh-Sheikh Madkour towards its north. Raised stone structures, a stone water trough, and the shaft of a stone column can still be seen there. PF surveyor C.R. Kinder mentions having seen in Eîd el Mieh an ancient well having stone water troughs round it. History. Biblical era. The Adullam mentioned in the Hebrew Bible is usually thought to be identical with Tel Sheikh Madkour, that is, the archaeological ruin referred to in this article as Adullam. Adullam was one of the royal cities of the Canaanites referred to in the Hebrew Bible. Although listed in Joshua as being a city in the plain, it is actually partly in the hill country, partly in the plain. It stood near the highway which later became the Roman road in the Valley of Elah, the scene of David's victory over Goliath. It was here that Judah, the son of Jacob Israel, came when he left his father and brothers in Migdal Eder, where he befriended a certain Hurrah, an Adullamite, and where he met his first wife unnamed in Genesis, the daughter of Shuah. It was one of the towns which Rehoboam fortified against Egypt. Micah calls it the glory of Israel. King David sought refuge in Adullam after being expelled from the city of Gath by King Achish. Samuel refers to the cave of Adullam, where he found protection while living as a refugee from King Saul. It was there that everyone that was in distress gathered together, and everyone that was in debt, and everyone that was discontented. Certain caves, grottos, and sepulchres are still to be seen on the hilltop. It was in Adullam that Judas Maccabeus retired with his fighting men after returning from war against the Idumeans. As late as the early 4th century CE, Adullam was described by Eusebius as being a very large village about 10 Roman miles east of Eleutheropolis. Ottoman era. Adullam was an inhabited village in the late 16th century. An Ottoman tax ledger of 1596 lists Eîd el Mieh Arabic in El Mieh in the Nahia Halil Hebron subdistrict, and where it is noted that it had 36 Muslim heads of households. The copyist of the same tax ledger had erroneously mistaken the Arabic dal in the document for a nun, and which name has since been corrected by historical geographers Wely and told Ono to read Eîd el Mieh Arabic, Yd el Mieh, based on the entry's number of fiscal unit in the daftar and its corresponding place on Hadaroth's map. In the late 19th century, the hilltop ruin and its adjacent ruins were explored by French explorer Victor Guérin, who wrote, "Upon leaving the hilltop ruin, Khurbet el-Sheikh Madkour, at 11:20 am, we descend to the east in the valley. At 11:25 am, I examine other ruins, called Khurbet Eîd el Mieh. 60 toppled houses in the wadi formed a village that still existed in the Muslim period, as proven by the remains of a mosque there observed. In antiquity, the ruins that cover the plateau of the hill of Sheikh Madkour and which extend in the valley were probably one and the same city, divided into two parts, the upper part and the lower part. According to Kandar, an ancient road leading from Beit Sur to Ashdod once passed through Eîd el Mieh. French Orientalist and archaeologist Charles Clermont Ganneau visited the site in 1874 and wrote, "The place is absolutely uninhabited, except during the rainy season, when the herdsmen take shelter there for the night." Previous attempts of identification. Early drawings depicting the so-called Adullam cave have tentatively been identified with the cavern of el Tuamin and the cave at Khurbet, named after Chariton the ascetic, because of their immense size. Modern-day archaeologists have rejected these early hypotheses. Nature Reserve and Park. The Adullam Grove Nature Reserve is a nature reserve managed by the Israel Nature and National Parks Protection Authority. It was established in 1994. The Adullam Caves Park is a JNF park of 50,000 dunams, 12,355 acres, 50.0 km2 of mostly pine forests, which were planted by Jewish immigrants who settled in the Lachish region in the early years of the state. The park was prepared for public use by the Israel Antiquities Authority and the Jewish National Fund. Today, the park sits in an area that is threatened by shale oil extraction through the CCR ground heating process, with the Green Zionist Alliance and the grassroots group Save Adullam, among others, working to stop shale oil extraction in the region. Landmarks. Archaeological sites. Khurbat Adullam, a nearby ruin with caves. Khurbat, tree remains of a Jewish village from the 1st–2nd centuries CE, containing mikvahs, a synagogue, a columbarium, and burial caves. Khurbat Borjan remains of a 2nd century CE settlement, including fortifications, wells, burial caves, a wine press, and other agriculture-oriented finds. Tel Sako. 2 marked trails for bicycle riders. Sako track, a 13 km track heading towards Tel Sako and then heads back. Track Borjan, a 22 km track which passes through the ancient ruins of Itri and Borjan and then heads back. Gallery.